massive, powerful advantages for it. And let's see how he leverages them going into altitude. His map for this first one in the top right, representing Dragon Kaisi Gaming, it is Dark.
And his opponent down here in the bottom left-hand corner of altitude. Make some noise for Solar.
Representing Onside Gaming and looking very focused there. He knows that he's got a tall task in front of him and a lot of question marks about how that red Zerg is going to approach this gigantic map, a vast space between the two players. And not only that, between the expansions themselves, we've got big gaps between those areas. It does mean it's hard to defend multi-prong aggression from your opponent. It means mobility. Things like Nidus Worms to just jump across the map and launch inside the opponent's main base are very powerful, as are Mutalisks.
Yeah, Dark is quite literally the man who's capable of playing any style, and that's what makes him so scary. Yes, he's known as a late-game monster. Yes, he's known for his macro games, but he is not afraid to spot a weakness and immediately exploit it. If anybody's going to be going for Nidus Worms in this particular series, if anybody's going to go for some quick, I don't know, two-base lair shenanigans, I can imagine it's probably going to be our player in red, whereas Solar usually likes to play a little bit more defensively. Now, altitude, like you mentioned, it's a massive map. I do think that Mutas are indeed very likely.
The ability to shut down your opponent's overlords, control the map, and force a lot of anti-air defenses, very powerful. And of course, we've seen that those Mutalist builds are vulnerable to big Roach, Baneling attacks. They're also vulnerable to certain Nidus Worm timings. So there's a lot of mind games and scouting that will come into it. So far, Solar slightly ahead on the gas mining and just ever so quickly faster on that spawning pool. Gets the Queens and the couple of Zerglings coming out a few seconds earlier. No one pulling off gas just yet, of course, as Ling Speed starts. One off gas for Solar. And as Dark does get to 100 gas, his Ling Speed should be starting up. And no pulling off gas for Dark just yet.
Yeah, that is a little bit interesting. So this is the first small deviation that we have. But if you're going to leave your drones in the gas geyser, well, first option is you've made a little mistake, which at this level of play is not really to be expected, or you've got something in mind for all of that gas income. Yesterday, we did see some very large Ling Bane attacks. We did see some quick lairs as well. So we have to see exactly what the plan is. Both players right now opting to go for a third base does not necessarily mean a macro game in Zerg versus Zerg. One of the problems you run into, obviously, if you're making mass Zergling is that you don't actually have enough larvae. So making sure that you get the third hatchery up, even if it's just for the larva production, is incredibly helpful.
Yep, that's the funny thing. People think a base is always a sign of economy, but essentially with Zerg, a base is also a barracks or a gateway. It is used to build just about anything. So far, both sides have the Baneling Nest at a very safe moment in time. Dark kind of pulled back his drone, tried to disguise the fact that he was going for it, but Solar went back in with the Zergling and saw it anyway. Dark does hit a little supply block there, but the Overlord pops just in time, and so far, neither side committing to big aggression. Solar just getting a handful of Zerglings. If he wants, he can apply some light pressure with that. Dark, on the other hand, is skimping on the Zerglings. He's only building a couple, and he is looking to be much more economic for now. But both sides are building forwards. The Zergling Scout's going to be very important. You need to figure out what your opponent's up to, and that's why we're going to see those Evo chambers beginning to wall off the front to block the opponent's scouting.
Yeah, interestingly enough, in the Zerg versus Zergs that we've had in this tournament so far, Evo chambers have been sort of up in the air. So the timing that you see on that upgrade structure right here for Solar is considered to be the standard. So he took it right around the same time that the Baneling Nest finished up. Dark, however, not going for an Evo chamber, and now after that Zergling Scout gets denied, he decides to plant down a Roach Warren together with an Evo. It's a small deviation. For the longest time we saw what Solar is doing in this game here, but for some reason, man, all of the Zergs here, they've been mixing up their Evo chamber timings ever so slightly.
Yeah, I mean, Solar doesn't actually use his straightaway anyway, so finally +1 range does start up for him, sign of him probably wanting to go for a longer game, that is the long-term upgrade. Neither side starting a lair just yet. Good skirmish micro there. Solar not letting his Baneling get picked off. Dark's Baneling looking for a hit. Doesn't quite find it.
Yeah, he's trying his very best, mostly just a skill check. Every once in a while, we will see a big detonation, and obviously when you're playing on a stage like this one, things can get a little bit shaky, and you may very well not have as good control over your mouse as you would like to. Like, for example, these Banelings are running on over to watch the third base location of Solar. Excellent splits right here, though. Solar showing us that he could have been a Terran.
Beautiful spreadies. Yeah, only one Baneling does go down. Dark will keep that alive for now. He's got Roaches and a Lair on the way a little faster behind this. Work account slightly ahead for Solar, but Dark finds a Queen sticking out. Lings and Bane's running in from two sides. He's going to try and hide Zerglings in the corner of the main base. He's going to try and do a sneaky Baneling morph, but Solar, he is aware, and he is not letting any big damage go down. Only 2 drones and a Queen. Good defense by Solar.
Yeah, that is the oldest Zerg versus Zerg trick in the book. We saw that in the early days of StarCraft 2. Sometimes it still works. In the meantime, though, Dark was mostly just making drones, and he's got a very good saturation at this point, making that transition towards the Roaches. Now, are we going to be seeing a Spire here? Because this game, yeah, there's been a little bit of damage. Both players did take a bit of a hit. Solar slightly behind, I would say, at this point, but it's honestly very hard to call. Is anybody here greedy enough to go into a Spire and transition towards Mutas?
Super straight up play on both sides. It really feels like Dark is almost surprisingly standard in how he's opening up this game. Something where I think Solar's like, altitude, what's he going to do? Will it be a Nidus Worm? Will it be Mutalisks? And then it's like, no. He's just going to play really straight up. And so many Overlords coming out, lots of Roaches. I do expect a 4th base for both players in the near future. Solar is trailing by a handful of workers, so Dark definitely has a head start. That 2-pronged Ling Bane aggression did throw Solar off a little, put him on the defensive, and Dark is going to be exploding into a massive Roach count.
Yep, both players just making as many of those Roaches as they can here. At least that seems to be their goals. We do have a little bit of a drop alert coming up right now for Solar, so he's going to be able to maybe load some of his leftover Banelings or maybe a couple of Roaches and try to bring them towards the other side of the map. Second Evolution Chamber here coming up as well for Solar, so interestingly enough, this is not really what I expected, but we're starting off with a relatively normal macro game pick.
It's a gentleman's agreement, Loco. We are playing Roach versus Roach today, and we'll see who's the roachiest Zerg of them all. Now, anyone who's familiar with Dark's history knows he might have been known as the king of the Roaches at some points in his career, and he's going to be very good at that, but the upgrade timing is essential. Solar's +2 is a good 45 seconds or so ahead of Dark, and that can be massive.
Dark doesn't believe it, by the way. He's now actually adding on a bunch of Spore Crawlers. Obviously, they can be helpful, too, against Tunneled Clawed Roaches, which is coming up for him here.
That's kind of a problem, those Spores. I mean, they'll help zone out the drops, but it's kind of annoying. If your opponent's not going Mutalisks, you're spending money on that, you're making Tunneling Claws, you're making Burrow, and you're droning to over 75 workers here. Dark is being incredibly greedy. And I was going to say, if Solar just holds the Roach key down and commits to the 2-1 timing, he might be able to take him out, but Solar is droning up as well. So this actually works out well for Dark. It feels like he is getting away with being just a little bit greedy at multiple stages of this game. And I'm not saying he's getting a massive lead. It just does feel scary, because you said at the start of the series, you don't expect Solar to want to play late game versus Dark. No one wants to play late game versus him. It's starting to get closer to that stage.
Sterile probably wants to play some late game against Dark again if he gets the chance in this tournament.
I think Sterile might even be afraid of his late game, man. I'm not even kidding. Sterile's been really good at the mid game. We'll see how it goes. Lings come in. Nice Baneling place there for Dark. Does defend it. Infestation Pit's on the way, so Dark wants to head towards Hive.
Yeah, and usually what we see in the late game of Zerg versus Zerg is a focus on Hydraling Bane. Now, the Banelings apparently got unloaded a little bit closer to that mineral line. Not really where you would expect these Banes at this stage in the game. Okay, 9 drones end up going down. Not nearly as good a split as what we saw Solar do earlier.
Yeah, just reacted a little bit slower, so we didn't have as much room to micro. Dark does lose a handful of drones. It's not the end of the world since they have such big economies. I love that. That Overlord drop comes in, does the old Abe Simpson and gets right out of there. Does not want to get caught in that main base. Hive, Hydroden on the way for Dark. He's got Tunneling Claw Roach squads moving off to harass. Solar does not have any tech progression. He's got a bit more money in his Roach Ravager army right now, but without the follow-up tech, I am worried that the Viper and Lurker timing for Dark is going to be very scary.
Yeah, exactly, and that's where he's trying to go to right now. Infestation Pit coming up as well for Solar. We haven't really seen either player really commit to one big attack, but I think we're pretty much there right now with Solar maxing out. He's got some stellar upgrades. He is prepared to play a late game, but both players, they need to open up supply at the very least to make that transition.
Roach Ravager moving to the left. Lots of Roach Ravager ready to defend for Dark. Even though he's a little outnumbered there, the positioning is good. Nice on Burrow on the right side. Dark's Roach counterattack gets cleaned up. Meanwhile, Solar starts to find some value. Dark quickly splits more Roaches to this side, and we've got those Roaches in the bottom as well. Dark does find a bit of value there. Solar's pretty quick on the cleanup crew. You can see both players incredibly focused as they play this game. Neither one wants to overcommit. They just want to poke and prod and force mistakes from the opponent. So far, no big value coming in. The units lost tab is probably very even at this point.
Yeah, both players mostly just tiptoeing around the map, trying to almost force the opponent into making mistakes. but neither of them really making any critical errors just yet. Maybe that little engagement with the Banelings, right, where they rolled into the mineral line, but honestly, killing that many drones at that stage in the game is not that significant. These roaches from Solar, though, are going to be caught for what seems to be, well, at least one or two of them, for essentially free. Nothing all too crazy, though. Dark gets to play the late game that he is so very well known for. I wonder, like, it feels to me that Solar is happy to play this, right? He must feel comfortable.
I don't feel any urgency or panic in his play at all, Loco. It feels like he is definitely just happy to go there. His Hive Tech's pretty far behind, but I don't know if that's going to, change things too much. Nidus Worm for Dark, always looking for the Hail Mary. Nidus, just get the lurkers in the main base, and suddenly everything can end for Solar. Solar's still poking around. He's the one in the driver's seat, map control-wise, but he has to get those lurker upgrades and those Vipers on the way pretty quickly. Yep,
and we see that late game transition right now coming up. So ultimately, the best unit composition in this matchup is Hydra Lurker Viper. It kills everything. Okay, nice kill right there on that hatchery by Solar. Maybe a little bit overly ambitious though for Dark, who has been defending most of the time. He's gonna need a couple additional roaches and they will show up. It's more than a couple actually. He's got quite a few of them right now available here on the right side of the map.
Solar may be staying a little bit too long, you could argue, but he actually wants to remove some roaches from his army to replace them with Vipers and then Lurkers. So losing a few roaches is not the end of the world, as Solar has the 5th base established on the left of the map, while Dark is still locked on 4 bases for now. Dark, though, you've got to watch out for his counter-aggression. It's so scary. Roaches on the right. He's got Overlords in position to start popping those Nidus Worms. Tunneling Claw Roaches on the left as well. Solar's got to be really careful. Dark is going to try to overwhelm him and just really make sure his brain cannot handle how many fights there are going on at once. Big push up the center at the same time. Solar well positioned.
Yeah, Solar has already shown us that he's amazing when it comes to playing defensively in this tournament too. Some of his games, for example, against Terran come to mind, where he was just under attack the entire time long. So far, he's doing an excellent job deflecting it. Yes, the hatchery did take a lot of damage. Burning down right now because of the building skin that he's got. But this is really good so far here by Solar. But not
Oh, Nidus Worm in the main. I don't know if there's anything inside the Nidus because Solar's applying heavy pressure, but a lot of his army's on the wrong side of the map right now. I don't know if he's noticed it. The Nidus Worm in the main base has popped out. Lurker's coming out. There's a few Queens and Hydras trying to deal with it. Blinding Cloud could deal with that. There's no detection right now.
Yeah, he's definitely going to need something to actually spot those Lurkers. There's the Overseer moving forward as well. We're going to abduct a couple of those Lurkers, which will also force them to unburrow. A very costly trade, though, that also just costs a ton of APM. And actually, Dark, he's looking at this like, wait a second, if you're not really gonna, be prepared for this, I'll just send even more units across.
Those Vipers already spent all their energy. There's no Blinding Clouds. There's still 5 Lurkers burrowed in the back. Dark here, asserting dominance over the main base. He says, I will just launch this straight inside. Solar, he's got a lot of bank. He's spending it all right now, trying to hang on, but those Lurkers are adding massive damage. Not to mention that worker line on the 3rd base getting ravaged from the high ground.
This was not even really meant to deal critical amounts of damage at all. This was Dark just testing the waters, trying to make sure that the opponent is paying attention. Now the rest of the army comes back home, but this is such an expensive loss right now for Solar. Honestly, he should be able to stabilize eventually, but he doesn't even want to play this out.
Wow, Dark. Yeah, I told you that Nidus Worm is dangerous. I mean, he always looks for that, and I love what you said. It was just probing, seeing if there was an opening. A couple of Lurkers eventually popped out. He saw that Solar was completely unprepared, and it's such a nice way to punish your opponent for being aggressive on your side of the map. That Roach Hydra was so deep onto his side altitude, a gigantic map, and it could not get home in time to defend.
Yeah, initially he popped in like 4 Lurkers after the worm was already done. He's like, okay, I guess I'll see how this goes. And then he realized, wait a second, you're not really respecting my Lurkers here at all. I'll just send in even more. And once there's Lurkers burrowing in your main base and you can't really push up your own main ramp, it's incredibly difficult to break. You need Vipers, you need detection, you need a lot of tools at your disposal to push that back. This wasn't really meant to win the game, but hey, Dark will take it.
Dark is so good at turtling and defending, but what makes him so scary in the late game is it's the fact that at any moment, 25 Lurkers could counterattack across the map. A Nidus, like here, could pop up in your main base and suddenly turn the game around. So it's not so much about just the pressure of, man, it's hard to break him, but it's also you never know when this sort of vicious counterattack will explode across the map. I love the extra Nidus Worms popping up to reinforce as well. And Dark looking fantastic in game 1. Manages to play his game, and I think really it was Solar who was just scouting and going, where's the tricky play? What's the clever play on this map? And there was nothing. Dark just played a straight up game, and he outplayed Solar in it. That's a huge confidence boost.
Yeah, on altitude, as the game progresses, you tend to spread your forces out further and further away from the main base. So part of Solar's army was all the way on the left, part of it was all the way in the bottom right, and that meant that the main base was exposed. Dark, only needs one opportunity and he will capture it right away. Incredible game.
All right, up one game now with a fantastic start to the series. Let's see if we can keep the momentum rolling in the top right side. Representing Dragon Kaisi Gaming, he is Dark.
His opponent, he's part of Onsite. He's the blue Zerg. He is Solar. That's got to be a bit of a frustrating game, right? StarCraft 2 is usually all about not trying to make mistakes. And he played a brilliant game there for like the first 15 minutes, and then the last 30 seconds, it's like a house of cards. Everything came crumbling down.
The Nidus Worm, it's such a powerful mechanic, and definitely one he'll regret not noticing as quickly as he could. And even when you do notice it, just happened that what could he pull? Queens, Vipers, they don't kill Nidus Worms very well.
Yeah, he had like 3 Hydras and 2 Queens working on it when it was already mostly finished.
I do think Solar could have handled it a little bit calmer though. Once it had popped, if those Vipers save their energy, keep gathering a little bit, you really just wait for the Blinding Clouds. If you've got 6 Blinding Clouds, Dark, it doesn't matter how many units he pops out there, you're going to be able to bust up into that main base and overwhelm. If you can just blanket his army and blanket
he abducted and he just reburrowed.
Yeah, I mean, the first 2 abducts, he didn't even have any army to pair with it. So Solar was a little panicky. You could tell he was kind of shook by the fact that that Nidus Worm snuck by him, as we're used to him kind of being a bit more measured in his responses.
All right, it's time to put that behind us right now as we do find ourselves on Royal Blood. Little bit of a smaller map here. So if Solar wants to go for something more aggressive, if Dark wants to go for something more aggressive, this would be the map to go for that sort of timing attack. So far though, game once again very standard. Both players opting to go for the Overlord here a little bit later, going for the greedy start, right? 1 pair of Zerglings, 2 Queens, and then eventually an Overlord.
And Dark actually cues another Overlord immediately. I don't know if that's a mistake or not. Normally he does not get that so early. Dark's kind of famous for getting supply blocked on 36 actually, but
every Zerg player is big.
It's not going to happen this game, that's for sure. Dark has been a bit more economically focused. He did not actually pull workers off minerals to put on gas initially, whereas Solar did, which is why Solar has a slight lead on the Zergling speed. But other than that, they both are just moving on forwards from here. Third base will go down for Dark a few seconds later. For all intents and purposes, this is a mirror matchup. Not only are they playing the same faction, they've also got the pretty much same opening build orders. And we're going to go into that aim high view here. You're going to see, of course, Solar's view on the left of your screen, Dark's on the right. As Solar just scouts around, gets a full circle on the main, sees not too much other than the fact that Ling speed is upgrading. And we are going to see Dark kind of get his Baneling Nest up on his natural. In the natural for Solar, I don't think he's got a Baneling Nest down just yet. Might be a little bit later on that.
Nice little bit of first-person vision. So this is what the players are currently looking at while they are playing this game as we speak. Should be a Baneling Nest right over there. 4L player in blue as well. So everything is pretty normal here. Curious to see if we're going to see, there it is, an Evo chamber coming up as well. This time around, it's much quicker than in the previous game. And I'm trying to wrap my head around these Evo chamber timings in the Zerg versus Zergs that we've seen so far, but they're just so arbitrary.
Nice Link Flood for Solar coming out, though he did delay that Baneling Nest by a lot. And that's because he knew he was going to be aggressive. You don't need defensive Banelings if you're going to flood across the map. Dark not ready for that. And a third hatchery getting cancelled. That's a massive start for Solar.
He does have a couple of Banelings ready right now, but those Zerglings, they're not really going to hang around here for all too much longer. Solar does have a defensive Baneling Nest available too. Some Zergs decided to go straight into a Roach Worm from here, but Solar going for the ever so slightly delayed Baneling Nest instead. As long as he's got Banelings defensively, he should be okay. Now the third base, though, on his side of the map is in some trouble.
Oh, Dark lets that Queen escape there. A little bit of mismicro from him. She is going to get in between the minerals and buy herself a little bit of extra time. Now, Dark losing a bunch of Zerglings there. Great defense by Solar. Up 3 workers. He's got defensive Zergling Baneling. His own Evo Chamber's on the way. And of course, the third base is being rebuilt for Dark, but he's playing from behind. Solar's got him pinned back. Ling Bane gonna keep him pinned in there. Dark is still massing Ling Bane.
Yeah.
He's not really droning up. He's not making upgrades. It feels like Dark needs to make something happen right now.
Yeah, that Evo chamber is just added, or sorry, the gas geyser that he just added on as well is a pretty big giveaway that he's planning on doing something aggressive, I would imagine. He starts sprinkling a few drones once again. Maybe he wanted to go for some sort of attack, then decided, you know what, I don't think I can actually win that way. But now he's certainly finding himself behind. Look at the worker count right now. When you're both making the same type of unit, the man with the bigger, well, worker count is usually just going to have way more stuff.
Solar's Overlord positioning is just too good. He saw these units coming across the map, even sees those Banelings on the left with his Zerglings. 7 Overlords on the way at a time here for Solar. He wants to make sure he is not supply blocked in the next bit of this game. Lings are going to get in. Dark with a Baneling, only gets 2 of them. Zerglings will get a full scout, seeing no lair, seeing no drones on the third base. That's going to tell Solar that he needs to do nothing but hold down the army key.
There was a little bit of a Baneling roll by or a Baneling run by over there. Another big Baneling explosion, but Solar just lost 8 drones to, I believe, 2 Banes there of Dark. So that has evened up the worker count here a little bit. Honestly, a complete necessity right there for Dark, trying to create as much chaos as possible, and eventually running into the natural to grab those drones.
This is how Dark plays ZVZ. He likes to really stretch out your attention until you're responding to attack warnings in 3 or 4 places. And in the midst of that, your minimap basically just becomes filled with these exclamation marks, these red kind of flashes going off. It becomes very hard to be aware of everything going on. That's when you look over, a mineral line that was filled with drones is suddenly empty. You don't even know how it happened to Solar, and you're kind of going, oh, okay. Dark did a Dark thing to me once again, as he always does. And there goes a little bit of my lead. Dark is actually ahead in supply, even though he's down in drones right now. Got a few more roaches on the map. And I think also that 2 Baneling for like 6 or 7 Baneling hit was really efficient for him. It looks like it's going to even out in the mid game. I feel like Dark's happy with that. After game 1, he's looking really confident the longer the game goes.
Okay, so even though we had a very large map in the previous game, it's going to be a Spire this time around. Sort of funny to see that, both players going for a very normal game number 1, very large map, where usually mutas are amazing. Now it's going to be Solar who feels, I think, probably almost pressured into this, right? He, yes, clearly has not really had control over the last few minutes. The game started off excellently for him, but now he's going to try and make a transition towards some flying units. One problem you can run into, however, when you're playing mutas, is just a really large swell of roaches. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's what Dark is going for right now. He's already been making units for some time. That Roach speed upgrade of his is going to finish here momentarily too. He certainly has a chance, and he should see the Spire here.
Good scout. Very important for him to see that ahead of time. Dark immediately powers up 2 Queens and an Infestation Pit, realizing he's going to need to go to Hive for Vipers to deal with the Mutalisks and tech on once towards Lurkers. Securing that 4th base is absolutely essential, though. Spreading creep in that direction, getting some spores down at it so the Mutalisk can't deny his economy, going to be very important for Dark. He's trailing a little on the upgrades, but with this scouting information, that's very important. Okay,
now, how heavily are we going to commute? Yeah, okay, so 7 mutas end up starting up here together with 7 roaches. So we're just going to make 1 big pack of mutas. We're going to try and grab full map control and then probably push in right around the same time that Dark is trying to make that transition towards units that actually counter the Mutalisks.
Okay, Dark's making pathogen glands. Against
Fungal growth is pretty good too, dude.
Against Lingbane Muta, it is not against roaches. They don't do 48 damage like they do in Wings of Liberty. Dark doing a very special Dark thing. I mean, he's just one of these Infester Ravager Kings. He loves using the Infester because he's so good with it. But you've got to be careful because that's a huge investment. You've just built 4 Spore Crawlers, 2 extra Queens. Now you're making Pathogen Glands. And this is going to be a giant +2 Roach timing. Your +2 is way behind. Dark needs to focus on surviving the Roach attack. And he definitely has the tools to be able to, but the Infestors are not going to help him out. He's got to be doing nothing but massing Roaches to make sure he can survive.
Yeah, he's hoping here, crossing his fingers and hoping that the opponent decides to play Mass Muta. But that is not what Solar is actually doing. Dark may be misreading this situation a little bit. It's very difficult for him to actually scout this out right now. He needs to get vision of the Spire. He needs to get vision of whatever he can. Now suddenly, though, all of those roaches in blue show up, and I think this tells him all he needs to know.
Oh, nice Baneling defense for Solar there as the Link Strider running. Remember, Solar is up in Workers. So even though he doesn't have the infestation tech, he doesn't need to necessarily win the game here, but he's going to try and look for those trades. He's got the extra upgrade. Forcing a big fight now would be pretty good, but you know what? The infestors are out. If you get pathogen glands, if you get that fungal growth, right on the big concave of roaches, trap them there. That could be huge!
Here we go! He actually does get a massive fungal growth up. Jade fungal as well. Corrosive balls, you were talking about it. This is something that Dark loves to do. Normally not in this matchup, but apparently it still works out for him.
The surprise factor was so big there. Solar just did not realize that there was infestors out. Move forward, and he was about as clumped as you could ever be. Dark with a fantastic ambush. I mean, he's known for his spellcaster usage for a reason. And he's not humble about it either. You ask Dark, he'll be like, oh, I'm the best spellcaster player in the world. Dude, give me a few infestors and a Viper, I'll make a comeback you've never seen in your life. And there's a reason why he's cocky about it. It's because he pulls off moves like that all the time.
Solar trying to push here on the right side of the map too. A little bit dangerous though. He doesn't know if there's another fungal available. And honestly, I'm not even sure that he really has the numbers. Now the Mutas do show up. Yeah, Mutas, I mean, they're not a bad unit against Roaches, but they're also by no means amazing, despite the fact that the Roaches can't shoot up. It always looks a little bit scary, but Roaches have a lot of HP. They've got a solid amount of armor as well, especially as Dark is finishing up the +1 Carapace upgrade in about a minute from now. I don't really think that those Mutas are going to achieve all too much.
Now this is funny because we're seeing an infestation pick come up for Solar. I imagine he's going to go Hive and head towards Lurker Viper. Dark, on the other hand, he's had the infestation done for a while, and all he's doing is building more infestors and adding Burrow Roaches. So Dark seems happy to hang out and just Roach Ravager Infestor for a while.
Fungal, once again! Massive fungal growth in that same choke point. Royal Blood has an insane spot right over there. Solar, well, basically walks into the same trap twice.
Yeah, Solar's got to respect the fungal. This is what fungal really does, is it forces you to be a bit more careful with your army movement. Solar hasn't done that, and he's getting punished for it. Another one lands! I actually would like to see Dark punish that by just jumping on top when he lands it, walking right through, because he's actually got a pretty scary army there. But now, though, he is being cautious. He's kind of waiting for Solar to make mistakes. Both players teching towards Hive and Hydrogen. We're going to go towards that late game. But Dark has been completely in control so far in this series.
Yeah, this is so dangerous, though. Every single time that Solar pushes up a ramp like that into a choke point, there's a chance that he gets fungaled. Honestly, every time it doesn't happen, it's because he got a little bit lucky. He doesn't really have high ground vision there. He doesn't really know what he's pushing into. So it's very dangerous for him to make those decisions. Either way, even though the pathogen glance here is a little bit strange, and that Overlord march forward also a little bit strange right here on the left side of the screen, both players are making a transition towards the Hive and towards the Lurker tech.
Roach Ravager still keeping Dark pinned back in his side of the map. Solar using this to establish a 5th base of his own. Dark doesn't care about a 5th base. He says 4 bases is all I need, but that was a good angle there for Solar. Dark tried to land a fungal ambush. Looks like Solar evaded it this time, getting a very good Roach fight on the top. He may need to pull back soon, though, as Dark is going to reinforce this side. Solar, though, loves that engagement, and he does stay a little bit too long here. The numbers now in Dark's favor. That fight will turn around.
Yeah, it's a little bit scary here for Solar too, right? Because he's basically hoping, crossing his fingers and hoping that there is no infestor tunneled on the ground. He has no detection. I don't think I really like the decisions here all too much from our blue Zerg over the last few minutes, but he's, of course, well, trading Roaches for Roaches here in the end, and it's not really the end of the world. The next stage of Zerg versus Zerg has arrived, though. Both players, yeah, look at the resources lost right there at the top left. That's insane.
That's what I really was about to ask. I was like, we see units lost out because those fungals surely were efficient, and indeed they were. Solar's going to commit in again. Not a good fight for him. There's plenty of Roaches for Dark. Solar has to be a little more cautious. Clearing up supply for Lurker Hydra is good, but, you know, you're here at a 10-worker lead. Solar should be getting ahead in the bank. Yeah. He's not, because he's throwing so many units away. So it's a very low economy for Dark. It's like a weird position for him to just be turtling on 55 drones. That's a tiny economy. That's not even 3-base economy. I gotta, you know, just basically look at this and say, what is Dark's play? Is he waiting for an upgrade to finish, and then does he just go for one big all-in, Loco?
I think he's just doing Dark things, man. He's just sitting here hoping that the traits are so inefficient that he can make up for the lack of a 5th. So far, fungal growth. No, okay. Even a microbial shroud wouldn't have been bad there. But anyways, we have the Lurkers joining in right now. Corrosive balls go down right away. Dark does not have a 5th, by the way. Solar's gas income should be better here. I'm not sure exactly why it's as low as it is right now. Maybe he hasn't taken the Vespian geysers yet. Either way, the corrosive balls once again do connect, and a couple of the Lurkers do fall.
Solar trying to attack on the left with Roaches. Does get rid of one Lurker. Another Lurker moves over and does hold that angle. Dark, though, still sitting on a lot of Roach Infestor, and the Infestors, okay, gonna catch a couple of these units. Very cute, corrosive bio usage by Dark, but it's an army that's very micro-intensive. If there's ever a fight where he just stands in pitch battle against Lurkers with Infestor Roach is gonna get destroyed.
Fungal growth on Lurkers, it's not something we very regularly see in a game of StarCraft 2. This is really the first time that Dark is going for a big attack. He's just right-clicking the hatchery. He doesn't really care about losing Roaches right now. He wants to get Hydras out anyways. Loses the units. As long as he doesn't lose to the counterattack, though, it's fine, as he did snipe the hatchery.
We can see the units count. I'd love to see how many Lurkers both sides have. Dark's economy much lower right now, and he's just getting a couple Lurkers out. He's going up to 4 Lurkers. He's still mostly on Roach Infestor. On the other hand, a few more Vipers and Lurkers already out earlier for Solar, but he hasn't been able to leverage that tech. Solar may have a bigger economy right now. He may have the better tech, the better upgrades, in some regards at least, a little behind on the +3, but he hasn't been able to use it. And this patience, like the comfort level of Dark is such a weird thing, because any other Zerg you put in there, down a base, down 10 workers, bit lower on the tech, they'd be panicking. Dark is sitting there. Look at his camera. He's calm as. He's played this sort of weird situation so many times. He does not feel any urgency at all, where any other Zerg would be panicking. And it's that ability to always stay calm that makes him so scary here.
There's the Nidus Worm once again coming up. We saw it once. Will we see it again? Dark is certainly thinking about the main base. He's got fond memories of that previous game on Altitude. He'll be more than happy to take control of the opponent's main ramp once again. In the previous game, he had the Nidus Worm just sort of sitting there for the first few minutes after it was out. Good chance we're going to see the same thing again in this particular match too. But you're very right, though. It's still 5 base for Solar versus 4 base from Dark. Dark doesn't have the greatest eco, and he's going to even lose one of these bases too, it looks like. It's an expensive trade, though, for Solar.
It is an expensive trade, but putting him back to 3 bases, I mean, Dark is having some insane cost efficiency, but this all comes back to the decision to just sit on Roach Infestor against the guy who's playing Roach Muta. The Infestors are not a unit specialized in this scenario, and even though they've given him some good value, he's given up all map control for it. He used this to get back in the last game, but there's a Spine Crawler waiting for it. I don't think Solar's going to lose to that move 2 times in a row.
Where did these Roaches just come from? Suddenly there's a whole lot of Roaches here on the left side of the map, actually putting in a lot of pressure once again. Solar is forced to retreat right now because of the Nidus Worms. There's another one inside of the main base, and because of this. Now these Roaches, they're going to end up going down here. Dark has a bit of a bank, so he can remax once again, but that Nidus Worm in the main base, man, I'm starting to be concerned.
Oh, it's empty. It's empty. It was a distraction Nidus all along. Dark just spent a bit of resources. Normally not a big problem. 2 Nidus Worms, a few Roaches, who cares? When you're broke, though, it does matter. Dark does not have bank. He's still below 60 workers. Don't get me wrong, he's got a decent army, 12 Lurkers, pack of Roaches, some Vipers, but he cannot really afford to replace. Solar has room for error in this game. Dark does not. Dark finally trying to reestablish his 4th base. No 5th base in sight. His mineral patches are mining out. Solar is in control of this game. He is playing a more confident style. Dark is playing some weird Dark style of StarCraft, but we can't really figure out how you're ever supposed to win with this Roach Infestor turtle. Now he's got the Lurkers. He seems to be trying to outweigh Solar, but Solar's showing patience. He's not making any big mistakes.
Yeah, if StarCraft 2 was an Excel spreadsheet, this strategy right here from Dark is not the most efficient one by any stretch. He's essentially making the same units as his opponent, except he's like 20-25% economy behind. That is huge. In theory, Solar should simply have way more units as this game progresses, but the trades have been incredibly efficient here for the player in red, so Dark trying to wiggle his way towards the 5th base right now, slowly pushing forward, but this 5th, I mean, it's going down at the same time as Solar is taking his 6th.
Yeah, and look at this. When your opponent's this poor, you can abduct anything.
Explosive Pulse.
Oh, big biles do land, but a few Vipers falling on both sides. Nice parasitic bomb for a Dark. Fungal lands and takes out the Viper and the Hydras. Those Ravagers are getting insane value. We got to keep checking in on that unit's lost tab because this fight seemed like brutal. 5,000 resource advantage for Dark in the unit's lost tab. Despite that, positionally, he's still losing the game. Another Nidus Worm does go up on the other side of the map.
I think it's fine, though. As long as Solar manages to survive for the next few minutes, he should come out ahead in the long run. Now, random Nidus distraction over here, once again, in the middle of all of Solar's bases, rather. Solar losing a few Lurkers. As long as he denies that 5th, I think he'll turn out to be okay.
Lurker for a lurker is always going to favor Solar. As you said, he just needs to keep on denying that base. Yeah, take some awkward trades. Sure, Dark is doing some flashy things, but flashy things only win the game if you've got solid fundamentals underneath them. And this game, Dark has not had that solid fundamental economy behind all of this. These Tunneling Claw Roaches going down, that's a free pickup for Solar. Insane value for him. Anytime Dark throws away Roaches or a Night Swarm like that, Solar can feel himself tangibly getting further ahead because the main is mined out for Dark. His natural, mined out. His third and fourth base low on minerals. This fifth base needs to get up and mining very quickly because if you look at the bottom overlay, oh, hold that thought.
Yeah, we do have him engaging once again here. Oh, big fungal growth, man. Those infestors, we were questioning them earlier.
Oh.
We have a wombo combo over here, though. Fungal growth into parasitic bomb. Solar trying to go through a choke point, but that is not the place to fight.
Solar did abduct a lot of units. He took out a lot of expensive units from Dark, but he lost every single Viper to do it. And it's gone from a 5,000 resource deficit to a 6,000 resource deficit. So Dark is continuing to trade better than Solar, and yet Solar's still maxed with Bank. He's still going up more and more bases. He's getting a 6th base up. He should be taking a 7th one. But this base is looking like it's going to be getting up and mining soon. You can see here he's going to try and siege it from the low ground with the Overseer for vision. Getting a few of those drones. Nice move. And the Vipers are what's important. Has Dark been able to rebuild his Vipers? Here we go. Should be able to start abducting some of those lurkers. Yeah,
the main limiting resource right now is gas, right? That's something you really need in a late game Zerg versus Zerg. Solar may very well, okay, we have one random Swarmos. He may not be able to deny that base through the center, but he can still sort of deny it right here through the bottom instead. His resource count is still looking good, but the gas is my main concern here. He's still pushing in, he's still trading very cost inefficiently. Dark, man, he seems to be comfortable playing this game, but I'm not sure if it's actually going to go his way here in the long run.
Big lurker volley there for Dark to defend the Locusts, evicting the drones from that base in the bottom right, distracting Solar. Dark shoves with the counterattack. Oh, he senses weakness. He realizes Solar's army out of position. Fungal parasitic bomb on the Vipers as they try to get back there. A very risky move for Dark. He doesn't have a lot of support, but he's got the positioning. He's going to force Solar to fight into him. Nice fungals on those lurkers. Does he have enough overseers here, though? He's only got like one. Oh, great moves for Dark. 29 drones going down, slaying the lurkers. Dark has been pinned in a corner this entire game, but you never know when he's going to counterattack. Nice blinding clouds for Solar, though. Solar's going to flank in from the right as well. Not many units left for Dark.
Yeah, he's trying his very best here to break this position, trying to get almost to this intersection right here.
There's no overseers for Solar. Solar's lost his detection. An overseer finally comes in from the left, but he had to withdraw after committing it to the lurkers. That is heartbreaking for Solar. Dark, oh my god, he turtles for so long. And I'm telling you, when that little neck pokes out from under that shell and that little turtle mouth just bites you, you're surprised. You're like, what the heck? You've been sitting in your corner of the map for the last 20 minutes, but when he does bite you, it is vicious. Dark is a savage.
This is not the normal game of Zerg versus Zerg that we normally see. Dark just needs one single opportunity. That being said, though, Solar has spent his bank and he is going to be able to push this back. Only 22 drones right now remain here for Solar as Dark snipes another base there on the right side as well with some of his very meager reinforcements. He doesn't have a lot of income himself, but he's got slightly more than the opponent. Now it's Solar's turn. Solar ready to do a similar attack on the other side of the map. Keep in mind that 5th base here, the one that we've got on the screen right now, absolutely critical here for Dark. He needs to get higher tech units here himself. And he's got to go back to turtling, man.
Oh, I don't know if Dark has any Vipers right now, or if he does, they must be gathering energy. The units have very important 2 Vipers for him versus 1 Viper for Solar. Dark has 9 lurkers, but a lot of them are spread around the map, harassing and denying these bases. Dark should have the advantage with that worker count, but losing that 5th base was big. That was very essential. If Solar didn't snipe that, he was screwed in this game. But look at that Hydra attack coming in for Dark. If he can get this base and get out with these Hydras, that's going to be massive.
Yep, and the Hydra DPS at this point in the game is significant. Normally we see the Night Swarm used offensively. This time around, I think it is a way to retreat and get on out of there. Snipe the hatchery, snipe the static defense, and then pop in the worm to go all the way back home. I mean, he even gets an overseer on his way out. Lovely play right here from Dark, man. In theory, though, this strategy makes very little sense, right? Like, they're both making the same army. Solar is doing it off of 4, 5, 6 bases. Dark's sitting on 3, 4 bases the entire time long. But look at the trades here. The resources lost in the top left-hand corner of your screens. I mean, it tells the story. Dark's micro and his control in those battles is just incredible.
Well, you know, all Dark needs to do is make the game weird. All he needs to do is drag it to a strange place. He doesn't play like any other player. Other players play optimal styles. He purposely plays sub-optimally. He plays weird, off-meta, offbeat styles so that his opponent is out of their comfort zone. And because he always plays such bizarre situations, he is comfortable playing in the chaos and adapting to whatever's in front of him. Other players are looking for familiar patterns that they can recognize. Dark always knows how to adapt just based on what's in front of him. He has this fluid style of play that makes him very difficult to deal with. Look at this, just picking those lurkers out of the ground. Solar loses his army, and Dark making a miraculous comeback off of an Infestor Roach turtle style that we've never seen before.
You call it a comeback, but it seems to me that this was what he had planned, right? Like, that's the thing about Dark's playstyle. He seems very confident, even when he's clearly in an inferior position there. I mean, look at Solar's face as well. He had all the tools at his disposal in this particular match to win, but both players are making the exact same units, but you're doing it off of more economy. It really is your game to lose. Now, we were questioning the transition towards Pathogen Glands. That's the Infestor Energy upgrade. Not something you really ever get in a game of StarCraft 2, unless you plan on making a lot of Infestors. In Zerg versus Zerg, it's not really the most common unit at all, but Dark showed us that, yes, on Royal Blood, it's actually incredibly good when you can control your ramps, when you can control the choke points. He got so much value out of those spellcasters.
Especially here in the late game. The Fungal actually scaled very well into the later stages. The number of wombo combos he landed, the Fungal Parasitic Bomb where it just blasted Solar's Vipers, he actually got insane value. Even landing Bile Fungal on the Hydras and the Lurkers multiple times here. This one was absolutely massive. That Fungal Parasitic bomb combo took out like 7 Vipers. That's 1,400 gas down the drain. It was his ability to find those fights time and again. And then this Killer Instinct, when Solar's whole army committed too deep on the top left lane, he just shoved through the middle. And once you're in between your opponent's Lurkers and their base, Lurkers are a siege unit. They aren't very good at scrambling back home to defend. Solar made a big misstep to that top left side of the map, and Dark capitalized so quickly.
Beautiful game right here from Dark. Just want to emphasize how difficult it actually is to control these armies. Essentially, all the units you have on the screen, they need a separate hotkey. It's pretty difficult to micro it all correctly. So it's not even just the Infestors and the Vipers that need to be microed. The Lurkers need to be in range. The Queens are trying to transfuse. You got to make sure your Overseers are close enough for detection. You have your Spore Crawlers pushing forward too. There is so many moving obstacles, so many moving parts that you have to control properly. And Dark does it better than anybody else. That was honestly a beautiful game right there.
Yeah, we're not used to Infestors scaling into the late game effectively, but apparently this man knows how to use them, where any other Zerg would have just accidentally lost them in one of those big battles. They stayed alive all game long. The best spellcaster user in the entire world. Down here at the bottom right side of the map, looking for the 3-0. Put your hands together for Dark.
And his opponent up here in the top left-hand corner of Dragon Skills. He needs your energy. Make some noise for Solar. You know, in theory, right, when you think about it, is there ever an army that's not better when you add in 2 Infestors and 2 Vipers? In theory, it's always a good idea to have those units mixed in. The problem is the execution, right? It always feels like you need to grow a 3rd arm to be able to actually control all of those spellcasters. Now, we've checked with the players. They've only got 2 hands. They're not actually capable of microing with their feet or anything along those lines.
Dark's actually a Zerg Alpha star, Loco. Let's be real.
It's actually insane, though. It's so incredibly difficult to manage all of those different aspects of that army in the late game. I've been playing this game for so long, and I'm still so impressed by these guys.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much to attribute to his just adapting on the fly or planning ahead, but to comfortably turtle on such a low economy for so long and just keep kind of waiting for your opponent to make those missteps. There's this real frustrating factor when your opponent's so good at just defending and surviving, where you feel like you need to load up your punches more and more. You need to lean into your aggression as hard as possible to finally break through. And the thing is, that ends up being your downfall. That's why you commit this giant Lurker Viper army to the top left. You're like, oh, look, an exposed base. I can get in here and do some damage. And Dark's whole army just unburrows and runs straight through the middle. And you realize only in that moment, you've kind of been conditioned to expect him to be the defender. He's defending and defending and defending. And you almost completely forget. And when that aggression strikes, it is so sudden. It's very difficult to deal with. It's so frustrating for Solar as well, because he's played a fantastic game. I thought he was well ahead in map 2, and yet he finds himself down 0-2.
You called him a turtle previously. I mean, he's more like a snake when he strikes, though, right? Like he's
Dragon turtle.
He's standing there the entire time, and then suddenly he snaps forward. It is beautiful. All right. Game 3 in this best-of-5 series. Match point right here for Dark. Both players once again opening up with what we consider to be the norm. Both players opening up with the quick triple hatchery. We'll be seeing the Baneling Nest, I'm assuming, here momentarily. So far, Dark has already got the gas for it. Not exactly sure if he's going to be adding it on here. I mean, he's got some wiggle room right now if he wants to get... Okay, now he does decide to go for a Bane Nest here, but if you wanted to get spicy, this would be the game to do it.
Indeed. Dragon Scale is going to be a medium rush distance map. Solar does expand in a straight line along the top of the map while Dark goes for the triangle third base. Solar, he had great success with a Ling Flood in the last game. I would not be surprised to see it again, and indeed we do. 20 Zerglings in the production tab, and he's delaying his Baneling Nest. So he says, look, I got ahead that last game. Let's do the same thing, but this time, rather than a delayed Baneling Nest, let's go for a Roach Warren behind it. So he might actually follow up with a straight-up Roach Ravager Ling all-in behind the Ling Flood. Here we go, already getting massive damage on that third base. Dark's Baneling Nest is just finishing up. The Lings are already on their way across the map.
Yeah, I was talking about this follow-up in the previous game. This is very reminiscent of Game 2. However, this time around, like you already touched on, it's going to be that Roach Warren instead. So we'll have to see what that what that Roach Warren is going to be used for and what the third base will be used for as well.
Yeah.
Solar still has such a massive army. He's still adding on a couple drones. It could definitely be defensively, especially since he's only on one gas, but yeah, he starts up a few roaches here. Do you think he's going to commit?
He doesn't have that much supply free, and there is an extra queen on the way. So I think I'm with you, Loco. I think it's just a handful of roaches. I think he'll move across the map to scare Dark and hopefully deny a third. But I don't think he's ever planning to commit into the natural. As I say, that 3 more roaches power up.
Yeah.
I might have just jinxed myself there.
Just 30 drones only, though.
That's a lot of roaches. Yeah, that is a lot of roaches in production. Lings are scouting. No Roach Horn is there for Dark. Dark's moving out, taking a third, starting +1 range.
Oh!
Roach Horn is only just started.
That was almost a disaster. If you're going for an all-in, losing your Lings right before the fight would be a problem, to say the least. Okay, Solar's been making non-stop army here for about the last minute and a half or so. Ever since the Roach Warren finished, he did make a couple drones, but that's really about it. 30 workers only. That means he needs to justify that army that he's been producing hidden in the back of his base for a while.
He sees those roaches moving out right now, does Dark, and he's going to be frantically throwing down spine crawlers in his natural. He knows he cannot defend the third base. Dark is at 9 workers. Losing the third is not the end of the world. It's getting this wall off up, getting these spine crawlers. I love the full wall. The Evo chamber in the wall.
Beautiful.
He's got to buy himself time. Solar realizing this, he's droning up, so this is not completely all in, but it's very committed. He'd like to break the wall and get in. He's still got 10 seconds till the spine crawlers are finished. Solar's trying to crack through. Banelings need to stop the advance. Lovely cancel on the Evo into a rebuild to buy an extra second.
Yeah.
Oh, the spine crawlers are going to finish. This is a beautiful hold by Solar.
Yeah, Dark just trying to buy as much time as possible, dancing forward with the Banelings, threatening those Zerglings. He's just trying his best to hold on whatever it takes. And at this point, he finds himself in a pretty nice game. He's been ahead economically for some time already. The only problem is that he doesn't have a third base.
Yeah.
He's got all those spines, obviously, that can be very helpful. They're not very static defense if you're playing Zerg. I mean, yeah, good luck with that, Solar. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, Solar's just trying to scare him a little bit, see if he can find some pickoffs. Got to be careful there, Solar. Does lose a Roach for free with a bit of a misclick. The Zergling count's still high, as is the Roach count. Solar's still ahead on overall army supply, and now taking the lead in the workers. I really think this denial on the third is massive, because your production, when you defend it, he had 3 queens injecting the whole time. Afterwards, when you transition, yeah, okay, maybe you're a little behind on like upgrades and stuff like that. Does that really matter if you're this far ahead on the economy? And if we could see that production tab in a moment, that'd be great. The Lings are pulling back on the left side. It is Spire for both sides. Okay. I think that favors Solar, though, because he is behind on the ground upgrade. So Muta versus Muta, he's happy to play that.
Especially since he's got a third base here, so he can start mining a whole lot more gas than Dark can. This is such a Dark move again as well, right? He has to be thinking right now about his opponent potentially going for a Spire. Strategically, the decision for him to make a Spire here is questionable. It gets scouted here by Solar too. I think Solar will be more than happy to play Mutas into Mutas. Both players know exactly what's going on. Maybe Dark, though, is going to be adding on some Corruptors?
It's an option. It definitely is an option. Roach Corruptor, you know, when you're up against a wall. Oh, look at that. Zerg is coming in for a surround, but the Banelings aren't nearby. They will keep those Roaches alive and allow them to regenerate a little later. I do like that Solar's going for the melee upgrade. He's still getting Roach speed, which is kind of funny. I guess he's got enough Roaches to make it worth it. But he'll be able to get into his 4th base, drone up, and he should be able to swarm over Dark if he's greedy enough. So far, though, does seem like Solar's playing a little bit more of a contained style.
Dark going for another expansion. He's like, don't mind if I do. Both players are going to be playing Mutas. Now, we don't see a whole lot of Muta versus Muta lately, and it's because things get a little bit awkward. The player with more Mutas will almost always win. So it all comes down to spending as much of your gas as possible on whatever benefits the Mutalisks. Fungal growth, amazing. Parasitic bomb, amazing too. But all of that costs a lot of gas, it costs a lot of time, and generally speaking, more Mutas is better. Usually, when there is an engagement going on, it's almost like Phoenixes versus Phoenixes, right? Mutas can't quite move and shoot at the same time, but they're so fast. With some clever micro, you can get them to attack very rapidly.
Yeah.
Okay, Dark does decide to go for the infestation pit here, man.
Yeah, this is a bit bizarre right now. I think he might just be realizing he's too far behind on the Muta count and the gas income as well. Dark, oh, nice move by Solar. Grabs 3 drones, going to this 4th base. Should be able to grab the 4th and potentially just run away right after. Dark, his Roaches do not have Roach speed. Mutalisk coming in for Solar on the right side as well. Solar's got to be careful, as there is defender's advantage here for Dark. We'll be able to take out one of Solar's Mutalisks if he hunts them down, but he decides to pull back. 4 base first 3, though, in Solar's advantage. Solar on 16 Mutas, Dark only on 13. Interestingly, both players went for the Flyer attack upgrades. Armor is technically the better one, and Loco, why are you laughing?
Yeah,
What's that purple upgrade?
Pathogen
What's that?
Man, we don't really see pathogen glands a whole lot in ZVZ, but now we have it twice in a row. The only reason to make that upgrade is if you plan on making a whole lot of infestors. If you're just going to go for like 2, 3, maybe 4 infestors, the infestor energy upgrade, not super nice because it, well, just gives you more spawning energy. It only really makes sense if you're planning on making quite a few. In the previous game, Dark managed to turtle up on 4 bases. It's going to be difficult for him to even really secure his third.
Oh, nice move by Solar, focusing down the Spore Crawler. Muta's committing before the Infestors can get in here. Solar is far ahead in this game, and he's looking to capitalize. Transfuses landing for a Dark. Another Spore Crawler does move forward into the fight, forcing Solar's air units to pull back, but the damage is being done. 13 workers went down, and I'm rather certain that Solar's Muta count is getting much further ahead now as the Infestors is where Dark is infesting his gas. Now, obviously, Fungal is great versus Zerglings, it's great versus Mutalisks. They're very kind of low hit point units, but it does still take a solid 5 Fungals to actually kill a Mutalisk. And your own Mutas aren't long range. They have to go into range of the enemy Mutas to attack them at the same time. So this is one of the most awkward compositions ever.
Yes.
Ling Muta Infestor.
That production tab makes no sense.
It's crazy. It's so hard to pull off these engagements, but Dark is like, nah, man, give me any situation, I'll make Infestors, I'll find a way to make it work.
In the previous game, I feel like the situation was a little bit better for Dark, though, and that match was incredibly close. There's the fungal growth. I mean, the units do heal up very quickly outside of combat. The chain fungaling here is solid. The Roaches and the Lings on the ground, though, they're really putting in a lot of work. If somehow, some way, Dark manages to survive, maybe he can counterattack with his own Mutas?
He had to use a fungal on the Lings and Roaches, unfortunately. Dark, can he win that fight? I think Solar overcommitted a little bit. But Solar, oh man, another fungal lead. So many Mutalisks going down. Dark just made one of the most amazing holds I've ever seen. He's still dead, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
He's just too far behind. But Dark is fighting from his grave like an absolute boss.
Those 2 spine crawlers were right off to the side of our screens there. I really wonder if at least one of them should have moved over in this direction. The Spore Crawler, at the very least, is thinking about repositioning here. Man, Dark is so happy to just play the turtle game. It surprises me every time. He's now essentially doing a similar game once again as we had previously. But this time around, I don't really see how Solar is going to let this one slip through his fingers.
Those Infestors need time to regain energy. And
there's more coming, don't worry about it.
He's not going to give him that time. The Mutas and the Lings are relentless. He's up 14 workers. Any trade is a good trade for Solar right now. And those Queens, they're basically the last vestiges of mobile anti-air for Dark. Queens, Roaches, and Infestors, some of the best defensive units in the game. And he is chaining those Fungals nicely on the Mutalisks, taking down quite a few of them. You can see even a few of them on low hit points. Nothing left that shoots up for Dark. And Solar realizes that victory is within his grasp. The last game was a frustrating one. The first one not going his way either, but Solar never gives up easily. And remember, he's made some pretty amazing comebacks in his time, and especially here on Swedish soil, where Solar won his first championship back in 2014 in Stockholm. He loves playing in Sweden. He's won multiple championships here. He does not want to be going out 3-0 in the round of 8.
Just for giggles, can we have a look at the resources lost? Because I feel like it's once again gonna look quite a bit nicer here, for our player in red.
When you're getting overwhelmed like this,
Yeah.
you should always be far behind in the unit slots. The fact that he's ahead
It's
at all
insane, yeah.
is actually really
He's
wild.
so good in these scenarios. Well, Solar has got to be second-guessing himself as well, right? Like, should I have been droning here? I mean, I've got 5 bases. My opponent is on 3. There's no way I'm actually making the wrong choice here, right? Well, the very least, that is something that Dark has got going for himself. Since we are playing a series, I think getting the mental advantage is very nice. But I've got a feeling that this attack right here from our player in blue is a little bit too much. Once again, takes so much damage to the fungal growth. There's an army coming in as well from the left side, but I think Solar's units, they are indeed in plentiful numbers.
Beautiful spreadies there for Solar. Does come in from all sides at the end. And finally getting a point on the board. Gosh, he had to work way too hard for that. He's thinking, come on, man, I was way ahead. Why is it so hard to get this guy out of the game?
Turtle Dark, back in action once again. For some reason, he always seems comfortable in whatever situation he's in, right? Everybody else would be panicking in that spot, and they're trying their very best to just make the best of a bad scenario. But Dark's like, no, don't worry about it. I know what to do in this spot.
Well, he's actually hacked the Matrix, you know, Loco. Like, he actually doesn't play the optimal opening build orders. A lot of the other Zergs go, what's with this opening? He's down 3 workers for some reason, and this sort of stuff. And then, you know, we've realized over time, he basically creates chaotic, imperfect practice environments for himself by never playing the same opening, never playing super duper exactly clean. There's always like weird variations he's doing that put him in odd circumstances, and he has to dig deep. It's his standard mode. For a lot of players, it's, oh, things went wrong. Oh my God, I've got to step up and play above my normal. Dark's like, that's how I play every single game. Every game I am playing at 110%. That is the only way I know how to play StarCraft. And it's why he makes, you know, for some of the most exciting and unpredictable StarCraft to watch. He is one of the best comeback players of all time. And that's why we love seeing him up here on the big stage. I always say Zerg versus Zerg can be a little dull if the wrong players are playing, but you put Dark in a matchup versus anyone, it's suddenly very exciting.
Oh yeah, for sure. For most players out there that are playing Zerg versus Zerg, it's all about whoever is making the first mistake. It's all about not trying to run all of your lings into a single baneling, right? But these guys, they're playing at an entirely different level where Zerg versus Zerg is incredibly strategic. Either way, excellent game, of course, right there by Solar, going for the attack, pushing up the ramp, realizing, okay, this is not going to win the game. I'm going to drone up my 3rd base instead. I'm going to try and almost create like a soft contain on my opponent. This is what Dark does, though, right? We've been looking at a Solar win, and we're still discussing what Dark was doing in that game. Mentally speaking, that's got to be in Solar's mind as well. It's like that game, especially that second one, that really shouldn't have gone that way, should it?
Sometimes you lose the map, but you take your opponent's soul, Loco. And you know what? He's definitely looking hard to kill. We're talking about him and hyping him up. But we have seen him get reversal in the past before. Let's see how he goes. Up in the top left side of the map, represent Dragon Kaisi Gaming. It is Dark.
And his opponent down here in the bottom right-hand corner of Neo Humanity, sneaking out the fastest possible spawning pool. We're looking inside of the main base of Solar. 12 pool time, big.
I haven't seen a lot of 12 pool lately, Loco. I don't know how it fares on this map. There is a slow zone in the middle. I don't think the rush distance is that short. Do you think he goes around the side lane and tries to dodge the Overlord so that it's a surprise?
I am honestly not entirely sure how he's going to engage this. I think he probably will just go straight through the center of the map. I feel like ever since that Ragnarok Zero game at IEM Katowice, we haven't seen 12 pools at this level because it just looked absolutely ridiculous. Dark, though, at least that's a good thing right here for Solar, is going for the spawning pool after the gas geyser. And this spawning pool is also positioned in such a way that it's not part of a wall-off. So Solar's actually expanding behind this. It's a 12 pool into a 17.
You're so used to seeing the drone pool, right?
Yeah. We see that so often.
I was thinking as well, same thing, but it looks like it's just the old school 10, maybe 12 Zerglings.
This is a build we've barely seen this year.
Yeah, you know, it's funny because you need to go back previous map pools, previous seasons. This is looking to deny the expansion or at least take out a bunch of Dark's workers and put him on the back foot. It's a nice way to get the momentum going in your favor. Solar is done with sitting back in the early game. He says, let's try and throw him off early. Dark's spawning pool was by no means early. It went down at about a minute 16, maybe a second or two late. And you can see here that hatchery's already getting wounded. The drones have to buy time. The Zerglings, only 6 of them here, but once you get to 8 or 10 Zerglings, they can actually fight these drones unless the drones get a good surround.
Yeah, you gotta be very careful here as Dark. He's forced to pull the boys to try and defend against these Lings. So far, so good. Obviously, that hatchery, though, needs to survive. Otherwise, this is all completely worthless.
Two Lings went down already.
Yeah.
Really good micro by Dark. He took out 2 of those low hit point Zerglings. Another Zergling gets isolated on the top. The Zerglings in the bottom getting surrounded. Dark with a fantastically clean hold. Only loses 3 drones. Keeps the expansion up. His queens are going to pop. That was clean as.
That is really nicely done right there by Dark. Any less than like 5 workers always seems to be an advantage. And, well, Dark finds himself in a good response once again. Maybe Solar was trying to create a little bit of chaos against a guy who thrives in a chaotic game. Not entirely sure if strategically that is exactly what he was looking for. I don't think he's going to be all too happy about it, because now he needs to defend against this as well. There's one drone on hold position, trying to just tank some of the damage for the Queen. Nicely done right by Solar, getting that drone back to mining in the main base. Okay, from here on out, we'll probably just see a relatively normal transition, right? Both players just making drones once again. I would not be surprised if we're still going to be seeing Link speed here as well momentarily.
Dark's played 3 games in a row from either behind or at least losing his third base and being heavily disrupted in the early game. This time, he'll be starting with a bit of a head start. You can see he's about half a drone cycle ahead. Usually ahead 3 to 5 workers, and he's been mining the gas earlier. So he's actually going to be just a little bit further up in many regards. Solar's going to have to play a real clean game from now on. Evo Chamber on the way pretty early for Solar. Dark still just droning up.
Yeah, Solar is thinking about going for an aggressive build, and apparently when he's thinking about an aggressive build, he's going to double down there too. We've got the lair fired up here really quickly. That means that he won't have enough gas for any of his Evo Chamber upgrades. Did he finish the Evo Chamber and then replace it with a Roach Warren? Yeah, he did finish it.
Yeah, it's just chilling for now. Obviously, I think it's partially for the wall off to the blind scouting. It is a little mistimed on the build, and Dark is getting further and further ahead on workers because he delayed his Evo, his Roach Warren, and his lair just a little bit. So definitely economically looks fantastic for Dark. 3 workers up for him right now. Solar waiting for that 100 gas. There we go. +1 range kicks in at almost identical timings for both players.
Yeah. Both players actually skipping the Link speed entirely, so even though a lot of the early game of Zerg versus Zerg is dominated by Lings and Banes, in this particular game we're going to be going, well, straight from slow Zerglings towards that Roach play. And look at that Solar, looking at taking the forward hatchery here on Neo-Humanity instead of the conventional one. This is something that Dark sees right away. The advantage of this base is that there's a high-yield Vespian Geyser right here at the bottom. That rich Vespian Geyser, it returns 8 gas a trip rather than the conventional 4, but it still has the standard amount of gas in it in total. So it's going to give you a nice boost. It's going to give you a lot more income right off the bat, but of course you do run out of it relatively quickly as well.
Nice light harassment here for Dark. Still up 6 workers with his own third base. Extra casters coming in. He's got the Roach speed in the +1. Well-timed Overseer denied. Does have to pull back for now. Solar's obviously going to have his mind racing. He's on elimination point right now. Solar needs to win this game and the next to get back in it. And you know he wants it so badly because not only does he love competing in Sweden, but remember that Maru is usually the player that blocks Solar in pretty much every big tournament. They always run into each other teammates. His teammate fell yesterday. This is one of Solar's better opportunities to get one of these championships under his belt. But he's got to make a miraculous comeback in this series. He started it. He's on the road to recovery. But he is behind a little in this game. Down about 5 workers. That Queen will push back that Overseer, keeping it alive for now. And Spire goes down for Solar.
Like how we've seen a Spire every game so far, except Altitude, which is where we normally see that Spire play in ZZ.
Cast a curse, man.
Yeah, it is a little bit of a funny decision. But either way, it's of course very, very powerful when you do get those mutas out, when your opponent least expects it. Now, both of these guys are very good at scouting. We see Overseers flying around all over the place, but at this point, Dark does not know about the Spire just yet.
Lots more droning coming in for both sides. Very quick burrow and tunneling claws for Dark, as well as +2 range starting immediately. He's also quite far ahead on army supply, and with Solar continuing to drone, that's very problematic. Solar needs to stop droning right now and start making roaches, or he is in mortal danger.
Well, you say that. Dark is the one knocking down the rocks over here in the middle of the map. That's going to reduce the attack path by quite a bit. There are more rocks that you can also shoot down, which will open up the attack path once again, but it does indicate that Dark doesn't want to attack just yet. And that's going to give Solar a little bit of time here to make his mutas. Considering we see the +2 missile upgrade, we will probably have a transition back towards roaches as well after one group of mutas.
Crazy convention noises in the background there, but definitely that was a bit of a shock. That's the sound of a Spire finishing, apparently. 8 Mutalisks are on the way now. We've got +2 range starting up. This is important for Solar. He's made it past the scary point in the game. I feel like being a little behind, taking the rich base, and going the Mutalisks. But he's gotten away with it. He's got 9 Mutalisks on the field. As long as he doesn't get surprised by Tunneling Claw roaches, I think Solar's in a pretty decent spot.
Okay, here come the mutas. How much damage can Solar do? Solar's going to try and just grab the map control, right? He needs to push back as many of those mutas as possible.
He hasn't seen it, right? So he can dive on the drone line, actually. I'd like to see him dive forward. How many queens are out?
He's making the assumption here that his opponent had already spotted those mutas.
But they had not, and that's why he's not prepared at all. The Mutalisks can get crazy damage. A bunch of Ravagers and Zerglings have accidentally burrowed here. That's a misclick for Dark. He's running his army across the map right now, trying to get over there. The Mutalisks may need to go home to defend. Solar with a fantastic wave of mutas catching Dark off guard, and he's set up to defend. Does he eat one of his own corrosive bile slime mistake there, but great multi-prong for Dark.
Yeah, Dark actually coming in from multiple sides right now. He seems to be losing his fight right here on the left side, but now he's coming in with the roaches that came from the right. They've already took down a bunch of the drones. Is there enough right here for Solar to actually push back this massive roach?
Beautiful hold by Solar. The way he fought with those drones at the perfect time, he tanked a bunch of damage, but didn't actually lose many drones. Sends it back to mining. The Overseer is on top, and Solar blocked Dark's Overseer scouting earlier with his queens. Dark had no idea that this was coming, and is completely shocked. I mean, the goal of Solar to go for the rich gas base and Mutalisks, 2 greedy things at once, a fantastic read, and he is not going to be going down this quickly to Dark. He now has a massive advantage.
Solar finishing up the +2 upgrade, and he doesn't even need it. GG is cold, and we are maybe seeing a reverse sweep.
Swedish soil, you know. We always talk about Captain America. There's different players who've taken up that mantle over the years. He might be Captain Sweden, I guess. Solar is, he just does well whenever he's over here. I don't know what it is. Something about...
Secretly a Viking.
Yeah, being up in the far north. One of his ancestors used to row around in their boat raiding places or something. Well, these Mutalisks definitely will live in that Viking life. They got in there and messed him up. The moment he realized there wasn't enough queens, that was great. And notice how the drones, they pulled back, but then he said, okay, I do need them to help fight. Beautiful. And he loses almost none. Like, look at that. Loses 4 drones, a bunch of them damaged, pulls them back to
firing here as well with the mutas on all of those Ravagers to prevent additional corrosive biles coming up. Brilliant engagement right here by Solar, right? He forced the move right here from Dark, and he was well prepared for it as well. It did look a little bit scary for just a moment, but we saw a few roaches on the right side and not really any roaches split off from the pack there for Solar, but he does manage to get another point on the board. And that means we're going to go to game 5.
Impressive ability to stay calm under pressure from Solar. Dark, now the pressure is back on him. He's the one who kind of has to start second-guessing himself and going, okay, how did we get here? Let's try to tighten things up. Because game 1 and game 2, I mean, game 1 I think was pretty smooth. Game 2 definitely wasn't. He just managed to wriggle his way out of trouble. Now we've gone into game 5, and Dark is going to have to realize, hey, Spire's been a big part of these series. He's got to keep his Overseer scouting going. If his Overseer gets blocked from going in, he needs to assume Mutalisks could be on the way.
All right, here we go. The final game of this quarterfinals. We find ourselves on the map Gresven, and spawning right here in the top left-hand corner, he is Dark.
Down here in the bottom right side, a lot of people were counting me out when he was down 0-2. Now he is here in a chance to make a reversal of a lifetime and get to the semifinals. Put your hands together for the Blue Zerg, Solar!
Solar reverse sweep. We may very well be, once again witnessing it, right? I mean, momentum is a very real thing in a series of StarCraft 2. When you lose the first 2 games, it can be incredibly demoralizing. I don't think it really bothers Dark very much, but I think Solar is probably feeling way better right now than he was just half an hour ago.
100%. It's a beautiful thing to see yourself turn things around when it looks impossible. Dark here is a scary man, especially when you corner him. He will fight hard. He will not go down without a fight. Both sides opening up with identical openings so far. Natural gas pool, and you are going to see Solar just rallying into that gas slowly. So a much more mineral-focused opening for him. Same for Dark. Neither one wanting to rush across the map with speedlings to cancel the other's third this time around.
It is Gresvin. Gresvin usually is a relatively big macro map. There's a lot of bases that are pretty easy to acquire. If Dark is once again willing to play that turtle style, I mean, we see it from Terrans on this map all the time. It's pretty easy to take about the first 5 bases and hold those for a while. Dark seems to be very comfortable right now, just simply sitting back and letting his opponent come to him and then eventually striking back. I think if you want to play that style, Gresvin is one of the very best maps to do it on. Now, we're still a long while away from it, but if I was Dark, if I was in his shoes right now and I looked so good in those previous games in the late game, I'd probably be aiming for it once again.
Some vicious pushes run through the middle of this map, though, especially if you take the triangle base, which is so popular here. It's tempting to just shove Roach Bane across the map. You know, the +1 Carapace builds we haven't seen yet on this map pool.
True.
We know that both of these players are experts at them. I actually wouldn't be surprised if both players go for the +1 Carapace big Roachling Bane attack. And that scenario is always very interesting to see how it unravels. Dark getting some pressure on Solar's third base. His Baneley Nest goes down right on time at about 2 minutes 49. Solar's comes down just 2 seconds later. And it seems like very respectful opening. Solar with a few more Zerglings building a second earlier. And Dark, no doubt, will add his in a moment. You need those Zerglings ready so that if a Ling Flood comes, you can immediately morph Banelings.
+1 Carapace builds in general, not very popular right now, but always a very scary attack, because all of those early game Zerg ground units do benefit from it. The only problem is that you need to deal, well, at least a little bit of damage on the other side of the map in order to justify an attack like that. Question is, though, are we even going to see Evo Chambers? We should be seeing them right about right now. Solar decides to plant down a Roach Warren.
A hidden Roach Warren as well.
Yes.
It's in the back of the natural. That is a big sign of aggression. Solar wants to just shove towards Dark. And like I said, Roach Bane is so tempting on this map because that third base is just sitting out so exposed. And to be fair, I mean, you're not even going after the third. You're really going for the natural and going after the heart of the economy. But I like this. Light Ling Bane pressure into extra Overlords building. Third Queen does start for Solar.
I think that Dark just put down a Roach Warren right when that Zergling ran away. I don't believe that Solar actually scouted that.
But Solar started droning now. Solar's not actually committing to Roaches.
He actually put it down right within the vision range of that scouting Ling.
Yeah, and Solar, seeing that, said, okay, well, I'm not going to commit. He built a third Queen, he started building drones, and he said, fine, I'm not going to commit to it. I hit a Roach Warren, I was hoping to surprise you. I don't think it's going to work against that early of a Roach Warren. So you know what, I'm just going to back out of the pressure, get a few Roaches for safety. Dark, on the other hand, he is going hard. 34 drones only. Dark is going to be committing to a gigantic assault. But this is ill-fated.
This is great for Solar. This is really good right here for Solar. He's got all of the tools at his disposal. He hasn't seen his opponent's Roach Warren. Well, now he sees a Roach. That tells him really all he needs. He's decided to go back into droning here too, but for at least a minute or two here.
Drone.
Sorry?
Oh, you mean Solar's going back to droning?
Oh no, I meant Dark decided to add on another drone there again in the middle of that fight too, but now he decides to go back to Roach production once again. Yeah,
and now 2 more drones.
Yeah,
Dark is realizing he can't break him, so he's got a drone, but he built like 1 drone, then 3 more Roaches. Now he's building more drones. He's being a bit indecisive. I mean, indecisive is better than committing to an ill-fated attack, right? If you just shove across the map, you're going to get slaughtered. I mean, probably. The problem is that Solar is being quite greedy as well.
Yeah,
he's not just massing Roaches, he's going a few Roaches, a few drones, a few Roaches, a few drones. And against what Dark's doing, this is perfect from Solar.
Solar has got a slightly bigger economy. He's got a slightly better amount of tech. This is looking excellent right here for the player in blue, assuming he doesn't lose to an attack right here from Dark, because Dark has a slightly bigger army. That being said, though, I don't really see how Dark is going to be able to overwhelm Solar in this particular case, and that means that we are transitioning towards a mid-game with a Solar advantage. Keep in mind, the man was 2-0 behind not that long ago in this series. He's evened up the score. Now he once more decides to go into a Spire.
This is actually a very quick Spire, especially with Dark being in such a compromised economic position. That's going to be really powerful, even skipping Roach speed to get that as fast as possible. I love this play for Solar. He's playing so well defensively, getting himself ahead consistently in this series, and going sideways into Mutalisk is going to be so effective. Overlord speed's on the way, but by the time that kicks in and Dark scouts with it, guess what? Mutas are already going to be building. So this is going to be very awkward for Dark. He is droning up, trying to recover. but he's going to be dealing with Mutalisks and a loss of map control yet again. Does he go for the Infestors again, Loco?
I think he does.
You really
yeah, I would not
think he'll do it?
Yeah, I would not be surprised. He doesn't know at this point exactly what he's playing against. The problem is, though, yes, it's going to be easy for Dark to take additional expansions from here, but Solar has already got a fourth coming up. This is an incredible position right now for Solar. He's got everything he needs to obtain the victory in this quarterfinals right now. Mutas are going to be hitting the battlefield here very quickly, and once about 8 of those are done, what exactly do you do as Dark, right? You can't really attack very easily anymore with Roaches. There's the Spire finishing. He's got plenty of gas available. Dark's going to scout a finished Spire, and that already means that he can't attack.
Instantly, 2 queens. Infestation Pit goes
There
down.
it is.
Dark realizes he's in trouble. He's going to need to build
turtle.
2 Spore Crawlers as well. It is time to turtle. Infestation Pit could be for Hive. It could be for the Vipers, the Lurkers, the more standard style. And that's what I honestly want to see. I think the Infestor styles, it worked, but it barely worked, right? It worked because Solar stumbled into Fungal 2 or 3 times in a row, very bad fights, and then got out of position to let Dark come back in the late game. You can't be relying on that. That is not a solid strategy. So I'd love to see Dark head towards Hive, get Spores, Queens, spread the creep, try to defend 4 base here. If you can defend 4 base and get to Hive, I think Dark is fantastic at that stage of the game.
Yeah, Solar should aim to try and deny that 4th base right here of Dark. It's down here in the bottom left. Okay, he's going to be heading over in that direction. Now, there is a lot of army available, though, and a bunch of Roaches end up going down.
You got to be careful as Solar.
Oh, nicely done.
Big boom booms, get 7 drones. Could have got a few more of those Banelings paired up nicely, but still, any damage is good damage for Solar. He's got that Mutalisk map control, his own Roach speed, and +2 Ranger coming in behind it. Oh my gosh, Dark actually gives up the 4th base.
Yeah, he can't defend that, and that is a massive problem. Dark is now playing 3-base economy versus a 4-base Solar. Solar, once again, has got everything he needs to obtain the victory here, and I don't really see him make a similar mistake once again. Pathogen Glance is going to finish up. We don't have any Infestors out just yet.
He's supply blocked.
Yeah, this is a really significant problem right now for Dark, because I feel like Solar is making himself up for a big attack. He's maxed out right now. He's going for the Roach speed. +2 Missile is finishing. I think Solar is going to push here.
Solar's just 1 step ahead. He's been scouting everything Dark's doing all game. Dark looks almost a little clumsy in comparison.
Yep.
But let's see what he can do on the defense, because we know that Dark's mechanics are insane. But the Fungal just isn't here yet. He can't punish this push forward. He's outnumbered right now. Solar shoving in.
I think he should have probably waited a couple of seconds here. Solar, that is, because he's finishing up Roach speed right now, and +2 Missile is going to finish up right behind it. Probably just want to test the waters and maybe hope that he had a bigger army already. We are getting closer to those Infestors being out there. They actually are already. And with the Pathogen Glance, they will have enough energy for a fungal growth right away.
Most of the Mutalisks went down. Bit of miss micro there from Solar. He could sense victory within his grasp and getting this chance to get to the semis. He shoves in. Great fungal. Dark outnumbers him here. There's not that many units on this side of the map. Solar stumbles into a few messy fights. He's got so much more money behind it. He has a 4th base mining. He has a 7th gas. Solar definitely can keep this up. But I'd also like to see Solar transition behind an Infestation Pit, Carrot Base, and a 5th base all going down. Solar can both swarm over Dark and tech up at the same time. There's no reason not to do that. And Dark, I mean, yes, he's going for those Infestors. He's shown an ability to get good value out of them, but he needs absolutely wild value to get back in this game.
Well, we've already seen him get a lot of value throughout this series. Corrosive Balls once again trying to go down. Solar may be a little bit nervous right now too, though. Stacking them all up together. There's the Fungal Growth, the Wombo Combo once again. Dark getting an excellent trade here, but Solar might just have too many units. The reinforcing army, though, for Dark shows up closer to the battle, and that's going to force Solar to back off once again.
Beautiful micro by Dark to survive, but right now, that's all he is doing, is just hanging on, trying to make sure he can't be eliminated. He's going to try and sneak a hatchery up in the top of the map.
Yeah.
At the same time, Overlords are being removed. His last vestige of map vision. Dark sees only his corner. Solar sees 90% of the entire map. Solar's Hive and Lurker Den start. And this Roach Ravager assault, it will not stop anytime soon. Good spread for Solar, making sure it's hard to engage him there. He's going to keep rallying in from the right at the same time. So many Ravagers here for Dark. You've got to be careful attacking into that Ravager count.
Yeah, he's got to be very careful here. I mean, Dark is trading as best as he possibly can here, but it feels to me like he is bleeding out slowly. This 4th base is actually incredibly important for Dark, because he needs it if he wants to transition to anything other than Roaches and a couple of Infestors. So he's got himself a Hydra Den coming up right now. He's trying to get one of the armor upgrades too. We'll probably see him transitioning towards a Hive if he gets the time, but Solar, he tries to deny it.
Right now, Dark is kind of just shouting, you know, he's basically standing there, blood dripping out of every single area. Oh my god, that fungal! But he doesn't connect the bile.
No.
Solar evades, he takes 30 damage on those units, but does not lose them. Meanwhile, Ro8 run by in the main base at the same time. Dark, he's got to hold on at the front while dealing with that. Very difficult to micro these two engagements. He will clean up in the main, but his Ravagers are a little isolated over at this front base.
I think he's fine. I think he's fine over here at the front. The fungal growth combo with the corrosive balls is insane. And Dark now actually grabs the supply lead. That being said, Solar has got himself a... Wait, is he going for a second Lurker Den? Is that a second Lurker Den? He wants to get both?
Lurker Den right now to try to get the other upgrade, I believe. Not sure if that's a mistake or not. Seems a little weird.
He doesn't have that much money.
Well, he's not. Look at the units lost tab. The units lost tab is insanely favored for Dark. Dark is 4,000 resources ahead while fighting with the worst tools. But his micro with his Ravagers is exceptional. Solar needs to be very, very cautious. Remember, this is what happened in that Lambo versus Dark game as well, where the Ravagers just survived for so long. And there's just, even when you surround them, it feels like Dark wriggles backwards and he just uses this like 35 Ravager count to drop biles on everything. It's very hard to force Dark out of the game. He, like any other player, you just attack with Roaches and win here. He's going to force the Lurkers, force the Vipers. Solar needs to stay technical. He cannot let this game get too scrappy, because that's where Dark is going to find a miraculous way to get back in this.
Just a few minutes ago, Dark was up with his back against the wall with 3 bases against somebody who had essentially the entire map. Solar still in a really good position right now. I mean, he's got those Lurkers. He's going double upgrades at the same time. The ranged upgrade is already done.
Hold fire, Lurkers! Hold fire, Lurkers! Let's go! Oh, Solar pulls off a big move there, gets a big volley. The Biofungal lands in response. Dark avoids the worst of it. If he stepped even further forward for 1 second, he would have lost that entire army. Solar turned those Lurkers on hold fire, so they only fired when he removed that command as the army was on top of him, or because Dark's Overseer was trailing behind. Dark has to be careful about that. He needs more Overseers to make sure he doesn't get caught out like that again.
Okay, we have a couple of tunneled Roaches over here on the left side of the map. Lurkers here at the front still being annoying. Now they have their tunnel and burrow upgrade as well, so life's going to be pretty good right now for Solar as far as defending goes, but he wanted to be aggressive at this point. Somehow, some way, it's Dark who's streaming across the map at the 14-minute mark on Gresben. I don't see, though, how he's going to get much done, but he's trying to buy time for his own Lurkers to come out.
Great move by Solar, though. Dark's trying to buy time. Solar says, screw that, and backstabs him with a big pack of Roaches in the north. Fourth base wide open, lots of drones going down. Dark cannot be affording economic losses.
This is huge.
He's been trailing for a long time. A great counter-strike for Solar. At the same time, in the middle of the map, there's a big fight going on. Oh, nice ambush there for Dark, but you know what? He needs to send more units home. He's not cleaning this up quickly enough. There's Roaches getting inside his main base.
Yeah, Solar trying to inch closer towards the Zerg in red. He's trying to burrow his Lurkers on the creep somewhere on the other side of the map and try to cut off that economy. At this point in the game, Dark is going to run out of money very quickly. If he loses the fourth base, he's doing an amazing job holding on here in the center of the map, but I'm not sure it's enough.
He has to slow down these Lurkers. Yes. He has no answer to Lurkers in a pitched battle. But great fungal bile combos landing. And the way he's going in and forcing Solar to keep these Lurkers burrowed. Every time they try to move forward, Dark jumps on him, and that is keeping him back. Dark now has his own Lurkers out. He has survived to get some Hive tech on the field. He's continuing to deal with Lurkers with a tier 1 unit like only Dark could.
Viper's coming up right now as well for Solar, though. Dark has to reach very deep in order to obtain the victory in this game, and it is not for a lack of trying. He's trying to bait Solar to make mistakes here, but Solar has got all of the tools that he needs. The fungal growth, the corrosive biles, it's all amazing. But Solar is slowly starting to push Dark to his side of the map once again. Vipers are coming up very soon. You can start abducting whatever you can. I guess in this case, you'll be abducting the Ravagers, because that's honestly what is keeping Dark alive here. Maybe an Infestor or two would not be bad either. Solar decided to be very aggressive, but he's now slowed down the game enough to a point where he must feel really comfortable again.
He does. I'd like to see more Lurker harassment, more Roach run buys for Solar. That was grinding Dark down. But Dark now is starting to stabilize. Does Dark have any Vipers on the field? I'm not quite sure. No Vipers for him is a disaster. When the Vipers come in, abduct on the Lurkers is going to be devastating. A Tunneling Claw Roach assault though. Dark's Hail Mary, he needs to buy himself time. The Tunneling Claw Roaches are going to pop up in Solar's third, and Solar forced to send his army home. He's only got the Lurker Viper left on the front lines. Dark doing an amazing job of buying time. He's also going up to 10 gas behind this. If Dark can get 10 gases mining, he can get his own Vipers out and start to counter micro against this. but now he's just trying to buy time with worse tools. Let's see what he can pull off.
Bucko growth right there on all of the Vipers. My God, that was so incredibly close. That would have been the beginning of an amazing comeback if he would have snatched all of those Vipers out of the sky. Ro8 is in the meantime, though, being so annoying, and that's exactly the reason why we see Solar making those mistakes here. He is busy trying to put out fires left, right, and center.
Solar trying to rotate his lurkers. Ro8 run bys coming in from every side. As you said, Loco finds an undefended expansion. Solar's economy getting put down in the dumps, down to 55 workers versus Dark 70. But of course, there is a much scarier army for Solar on the field. Dark refuses to get put in the ground. He is being such a frustrating opponent for Solar to deal with. But Solar wants that comeback. He was down 0-2, looking helpless like a little lamb in this series. Now he is the monster, he is the beast, looking to finish off Dark. Dark is trying to hold the door right now, but Solar is coming to knocking.
This is an insane series right here. Dark trying to reach as far as he can, trying to see if he can still somehow, some way obtain the victory here. Baiting his opponent to make as many mistakes as possible, but for now, it seems to be that he's okay. Now, once again, we have that Hail Mary play here. Dark going straight through the center of the map. He wants to sit on the high ground here. He wants to sit on that intersection, right, and burrow all of those lurkers. The fourth base does eventually fall, though.
Fifth base is up, though. Dark has a better economy. He's on 8 gases still. He can rebuild that hatchery. Sets up in the middle of the map. He's got to be careful about getting jumped on. Oh, I really feel like Solar, if he's got like 1 or 2 blinding clouds, he can just destroy these armies. But Dark is being so hard to pin down, so irritating with these harassment. I'd like to see Dark pull back from here, though. He's a bit deep. It's not that many units on their own. There's Vipers for Solar. If he takes out the hatchery and then runs and gets out, that is an amazing move, and he gets the hatchery. I'd love to see Dark pull back in the top of the map.
Oh, this is so dangerous, though. Lurkers need detection in order to actually see where they are shooting their spines. No, don't make that mistake, Solar. Oh my God, you just almost lost all of the lurkers. You're trying to run them around here. That would be a disaster.
Oh, but how is Dark doing this right now? Dark has a massive economy advantage, but he's at 70 army supply deficit. Solar finally finds the blinding clouds. No, he doesn't have the energy on those Vipers. He does come forward. Good micro backwards for Dark. Dark is trying to hold on. He's in such a bad position, but he's got the better economy now. The Vipers, though, say we don't care about an economic deficit. We can just yoink you out of the ground. And Dark, he's not responding with his own Vipers. He's trying to do it with just raw fighting units.
He's got to kill his own hatchery here if he's not careful. Yeah, he will, because that base was already low on hit points from that aggression earlier. Luckily, though, there is a little bit more energy right now in those Vipers, and they're just harpooning whatever they can. That must have been at least like 5-6 lurkers going down already, and those units, they're incredibly expensive. Still, though, Solar needs to be careful. This is not a game where he can just shove for the victory.
Dark is just not building Vipers, though. If he doesn't build his own Vipers, he has no answer. There is no way to deal with your opponent's Vipers without Parasitic Bomb or your own Abducts coming in. He's trying to do this with aggressive movement, but 67 army supply to 144. Solar, I mean, yes, he's let his economy take big hits. Yes, his economy has been smashed to pieces. Does it matter? Not when your army is this big. As long as he can use that army effectively, he can still find a way to victory. And that way, it's those Vipers. Yoink, 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 exactly, Loco. He's just going to abduct all of those
lurkers.
Yeah,
those lurkers here are just amazing, right? Just getting all of them would be amazing. I'm not 100% sure about the the Viper play over there, though. I guess it's all of these distractions. Now, finally, we do see some abductions going down once again. Man, Dark is such a monster in this matchup, though.
Yeah, double lurker run by winning. One on the top, one on the bottom. I think the bottom one got cleaned up already, but it tried to come in. Solar did defend that base, or Dark did, sorry. Dark's on 62 drones versus 26 for Solar. The army supply, though, is just, it's how do you ever get rid of the Vipers? Dark is basically trying to be so annoying with his lurker run-bys that at some point Solar loses track of his army, and your Hydras kill all the Vipers. That is a long shot. Solar is way too good to let that happen. Dark, he's got some gas in the bank. I think he's got to build a few Vipers to get some parasitic bombs down. But look at that lurker harassment. It's just so irritating to deal with.
Dark is just so incredibly quick in the late game, right? Like everything just looks a little bit more fluent. Solar, though, still at an advantage, I would say. I mean, he's been at an advantage for like the last 15 minutes, and this game is still going on.
But we're just watching Dark refuse to die. He will not go out of this game in this series. And he did this to get the 2-0 lead as well. Remember, it's not like he's been dominating
Solar. That's a lot of drones. Is he going to be able to snipe those as well? Not quite, as the lurkers are forced to back off once again. Solar's been trying to get to this position for ages. I feel like he needs to just go north. This base over here is nice, but don't you just want to sit there in the natural?
That's the last mining base, so I think it's good enough. As long as he's finally getting on the heart of Dark's economy. Behind this, a counterattack of a few Hydras. Dark will take out the last mining base of Solar, but Solar still stands at 135 army supply. I feel like Dark has been so far behind since the 6-minute mark, but Solar has had to run an absolute gauntlet to get to this point where finally victory is within his grasp. This man wants to hold up that trophy on Swedish soil once more, and to have such a rough start in this series, down 0-2, this would be a monumental comeback. What I love about Solar is on that camera, I can see there's no emotion coming out. He's really staying calm and focused. I expect a big outburst of emotion, though, when this series ends, because he has been just staying so stoic, calm, and controlled in the face of the madman Dark. Dark is still trying to be annoying with these drones, finding new mining, looking for some value with his lurkers, but there is just no answer to the Vipers. His tech was so far behind.
GG, and there it is. Solar completes the reverse sweep.